In my last video, we looked at a boxing iceberg I made. Well, that video did really well, so here I am making a part 2. So without wasting any more time, let's just get into it with Salamo Aroush. Salamo Aroush was a Jewish Greek boxer known as the ballet dancer. He was an all-Balkan middleweight champion with a record of 24 wins with 24 wins by way of knockout. Salamo would eventually join the army where he'd go on to fight and win 2 more bouts. However, in 1943, Salamo's life took a tragic turn as him and his family were transported in a boxcar to Nazi concentration camp Auschwitz. Being tagged 136954, Aroush was used as an entertainment slave to put shows on for the evil Nazi guards. If he won, he would be given more food and/or lighter work, but if not, he knew the prisoners who lost were either sent to the gas chambers or shot. He knew one way or another, if he lost, he was dead. The sick guards made him fight for his life a total of 208 times. It was also reported that he beat a 250-pound man at 135 in just 18 seconds. This story does have a happy ending, however. He was released from Auschwitz in 1945, where his parents and siblings unfortunately died. However, in the search for them, he met Marta Yeshil. They went on to get married in November of the same year and went on to raise 4 children as Aroush traveled around the world as a motivational speaker. In 1989, a movie about the situation was made starring William Dafoe. The movie titled Triumph of the Spirit would be released on December 8th, 1989 to okay reviews. Before we get into our second entry, subscribe. 110 round fight. On April 6, 1893, in New Orleans, Louisiana, Andy Bowen would take on Jack Berkey. The fight obviously lasted a long time, with it running for 7 hours and 19 minutes. It was so long, in fact, that the spectators actually fell asleep in their seat. Both fighters lost a lot of weight, and at the end of it, no winner could be decided, so it was ruled a no contest after neither fighter could continue. Tony Marino. Tony Marino was a former bantamweight champion who was trained by the famous Ray Archel, who also trained legendary boxer Roberto Duran, who, by the way, received a lot of praise from Floyd Mayweather. Ray also trained Larry Holmes. But back to Tony, who on February 1st fought versus Carlo Quintiana. In this fight, Marino was beaten badly, being dropped 5 times. The fight still concluded, however, lasting the full 8 rounds. The problem lies with what happens after the bell. Tony collapsed immediately after Carlos's hand was raised. The ringside doctor diagnosed him with a concussion as he was rushed to Koikov Heights Hospital in Brooklyn. Tony would never recover, however, passing away just 2 days later. 2 more days after he died, the New York State Athletic Commission introduced the 3 knockdown rule. Murderers Row. Murderers Row were a group of African-American boxers who were so damn good that everybody avoided them. None of the 8 fighters received title shots, despite continuously being in the top 10 rankings. The 8 fighters, Charlie Burley, Lloyd Marshall, Holman Williams, Herbert Lewis, Jack Chale, Eddie Brooker, Aaron Wade, Burt Listle, were all so good that nobody wanted to fight them. Because of this, they had to fight each other. A total of 62 bouts took place between them all, with them being reported as classic. The most legendary series between them would include Eddie Brooker versus Charlie Burley. Both Hall of Famers fought a total of 7 times, with the contest ending 3-3 with 1 no contest. Despite the name of the group, it doesn't seem that any of them were actually murderers. Through my intensive research, it seemed that they were all just regular people who had second jobs to support themselves and never got to compete in title fights. Overall, it seemed like they were named after Murderers Row, a group of murderers on death trial whose death date would be extended if they kept winning baseball games. I forgot to add this to the main picture, but Gerald McClellan. Shout out to username3 for the recommendation, and if I do ever do a part 3, comment below if I should do suggestions from you guys or if I should try to find the entries myself. And if you do think I should do suggestions, then leave yours down below. Now back to the video. Gerald Allen McClellan is a former 2-division champion fighting at middle and super middleweight. He amassed a record of 34-3 with 29 wins by way of knockout. He was known for his insanely hard punching power and has one of the highest first-round KO ratios in history. He was also called the best fighter in the world by Mike Tyson while he was incarcerated. In fact, he even beat Roy Jones Jr. in an amateur bout, and also illegally held dogfighting rings. But this entry talks about his final fight, a fight versus Nigel Benn in London that took place on February 25th, 1995. The fight was big, with 17 million viewers on TV and 10,300 fans in attendance. McClellan started out excellent, knocking Benn out of the ring and even getting a second knockdown all the way in round 8. And while it seems like it was going McClellan's way, the entire time Ben had been illegally hitting him on the back of the head, and the referee seemed to do nothing about it. The first sign that something was wrong happened all the way in round 10, where McClellan was seen repeatedly blinking. Ben then threw his shoulder into his eye, which made him take a knee. After the count was up, he got back up but didn't throw a single punch before going down again. McClellan only got back up once, and that was when they raised Ben's hand to give him the victory. But immediately after, McClellan lost consciousness and fell into a coma. He was rushed to the hospital, and after spending 11 days in a coma, he woke up 80% deaf, blind, and almost unable to walk. And like the original comment said, he had the same fate as Pritchard Colin, with nowhere near the same amount of coverage. A campaign was started by Ben and Roy Jones Jr. to help pay for his medical bills. Muhammad Ali, FBI investigated fight. I mentioned this in the last video, but I didn't realize just how deep the lore goes. The story starts with the Las Vegas gambler named Ash Resnick, also a boxer named Cassius Clay, or better known as Muhammad Ali, who had a fight with Sonny Liston back in 1965. Sonny, who at the time was known as Unbeatable, went down in the 7th round, scoring Ali a near impossible knockout. And while nobody could believe it, the previously mentioned Ash Resnick could, as he had just won $1 million bet. Because of the near impossible odds placed on the fight, the FBI questioned the legitimacy of the fight and never ended up coming to a conclusion. Ash not only had a newbie knocking out the unbeatable Sonny, but he also predicted the round. It was only investigated for a year, and the FBI never came up with a conclusion. But I have a 3-pack special for you. All of the 3 times the FBI investigated Muhammad Ali. 1 was the one I just mentioned, and 2 is when the FBI had tabs on Ali as he was linked with the Nation of Islam, a group with other leaders such as Malcolm X. The group are described by Google as a black nationalist organization that focuses on the African diaspora. The FBI, however, viewed them as subversive, which basically means annoying or in the way. The 3rd time was when Ali questioned the FBI on civilian privacy. In 1971, Ali found that the FBI was illegally spying on Americans. On March 8th of the same year, Ali fought Joe Frazier for the first time, marketed as The Fight, and the legendary bout was used as a perfect cover-up for something deeper. A crew broke into the FBI office in Pennsylvania as the 8 activists stole pages and pages of files until there was not a single one left. They revealed that the FBI, led by the director J. Edgar Hoover, were illegally spying on Americans, even keeping tabs on Martin Luther King Jr. Because of the break-in, major privacy reforms were made as the legendary fight worked as a perfect cover-up. Dozens of interviewed guards reported not seeing or hearing anything as they were too invested in the fight. Ironically, after Ali's death, the FBI released 140 pages of tabs they kept on Ali. Another comment recommendation, Jimmy Doyle. Thank you to Elijah Hussery for the recommendation. Jimmy Doyle was a boxer who amassed a record of 43 wins, 7 losses, and 3 draws. One night, he decided to challenge Sugar Ray Robinson. On June 1947, the day they were scheduled to fight, Robinson mysteriously pulled out of the fight. He claimed that he had went to sleep and woke up in a cold sweat with a nightmare that he had knocked out and killed Doyle. The next morning, he told the press and boxing officials what he saw was going to happen. A priest and a minister even tried convincing Robinson that it was nothing but a bad nightmare. Unfortunately for the two of them, Robinson's dream had become a reality. Robinson hit Doyle with a punch in the 8th round, which Doyle would never recover from. Doyle was knocked out and would never wake up, dying in hospital. Robinson then learned that Doyle was fighting to save up money to buy a house for his mother. Robinson then gave up the winnings of his next 3 fights to Doyle's mother. That wasn't enough though, as Robinson still blamed himself for years to come. Now on to the most recommended one, Don King. Don King is a highly controversial figure in boxing, but on paper, he's super highly praised, being regarded as larger than boxing by The Guardian. He was also known as the first black man to ever dominate an industry. But as someone stated in a different comment, he had a lot of robberies attached to him. Most famously was Giovanni Santiago versus Adrian Broner, where it was highly believed that Giovanni Santiago won, despite Adrian Broner getting the unanimous decision. The real controversy comes with what he did right before he became famous. In 1954, King shot a man in the back of the head who was trying to rob one of his gambling houses. Perfectly justifiable, right? Well, nearly 15 years later, Don King stomped one of his employees, Sam Garrett, to death for owing him $600 in gambling money. Sam's reported last words before being stomped to death by Don were, "Don, I'll pay you the money." However, Don only spent 3 years and 11 months in prison for this. Just a reminder, he stomped someone to death for owing him $600. But later in life, Mike Tyson sued him for owing him over $100 million. HBO even made a movie calling him out called Don King Only in America, which was a movie about his life and all the crimes he committed. Sonny Liston, mysterious death. Geraldine Liston had been trying to contact her husband, Sonny Liston, but failed to get through with him. She was visiting his mother in St. Louis for Christmas, but had to rush back all the way to Las Vegas after all the missed calls. When she arrived at his house in Las Vegas, she followed a strange odor all the way upstairs. It's there where she saw her lifeless husband. He was bloated and had reportedly been dead for at least 6 days, with dried blood streaking from his nose. The real mystery is how he died. There were reportedly no signs of forced entry, no visible weapons, and no sign of struggle. They did find a weapon, but there was no wounds found on Liston's body. They found needle marks in his arm, however, but Liston was reportedly afraid of needles. He would even skip doctor's appointments in fear that they'd put needles inside of him. Finally, they found drugs inside of him, but it was stated that it was nowhere near enough to cause a fatal dose. Rob Steen even said, "I don't think anyone really believed that he had a heart attack." Overall, a huge gust of mystery covers this boxing legend's death. And that's it for this video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. Thank you for the support on the last video, and I'll see you guys next time.